people of yesteryear. Now, today I'm going to speak about a famous, I think he was ordained even as a rabbi, if I'm not mistaken, Harav Shlomo Kohen Sedek. He lived between the years 1891 to 1960. Very famous, let's just say, personality of his time. He was actually nicknamed the Sultan Suleiman. That's what his nickname was, and very, very much reported over. And I think he was born in the year 1891. He was the eldest son of Mullah Yosef Kohen-Sedek, who was the father of a religious Jewish family in Tehran. Now, we've spoken about many different famous Teheranians, let's just say, itself, Persians, here in this series, and he definitely is up there and is among them. He was a Sopher, he was a historian, he was a leader of the congregation, he was an educator, and he was a philanthropist on top of everything else, an outstanding one out of the Jewish community of Iran, especially during the 20th century. He would form the Otsah HaTorah network. I believe it was school educational network, if I'm not mistaken. He was author of famous works, Mechabes Svarim Chashuvim Al Toldot Yehudit Iran. He would actually write a book on the, let's say, chronicles of the, let's say, different rabbis and personalities of Iran itself. And Morasheh HaPa'alim Hat Rabotiyam Vadatiim Shel HaKihilat Yehudim HaParsit B'Tkufa HaShoah. So I think during the time period of the Second World War, possibly, also maybe the First World War, he was like, let's just say, a spiritual and important figure in of itself. So we're going to explore some of the highlights of the famous rabbi's life in of itself. So I think he was ordained as a rabbi. We'll have to double check on that. And he was born in 1891 in Tehran. He was actually born. Beno shel Mullah Yosef Kohen Sedek. He happens to have been Ishtat Mishpacha Yavdit Datit Mukeret. And he would learn in the famous Beit Sefer Alliance Tehran. He learned over there. Now that's we've actually spoken about the Alliance network of schools in itself. Now the Tehran one, I think, was opened in the 1898, if I'm not mistaken. That school system happened to have been born at that point in time. Let's just explore a bit with regards to Alliance of Tehran. So it was born in 1898 and had, let's say, tried this school system to improve the situation of the Jews in Iran at that point in time. But as I said before, it wasn't necessarily the most spiritual school in of itself, and many of the rabbis globally would complain that maybe it wasn't up to scratch with regards to Torah education. I think it was the Alliance itself was established back in the year 1860 in Paris, as we've spoken about on various occasions before, and will form in various countries. That's something we have to point out. And I think it was when Nasr al-Din Shah Qajar, he was one of the kings of the Qajar dynasty, would travel through Europe in 1873. Especially, I think he would meet the Adolphe Crémieux, who was the director of the Alliance Universal, and they had a meeting speaking and grappling about the issues that faced Iranian Jewry at that point in time. And they would speak about it, and then eventually there was plans to build a school. I think in 1898 there was objections by various people at various stages of time, and I think eventually it would be the first school would open in Tehran in 1898. And very, very interesting. So as I said before, it was the Otsah HaTorah network of schools was definitely much more religious on the religious spectrum from what I hear about. I think there was also Alliance School also in other places, like in Hamadan, also in Kermanshah, if I'm not mistaken, but that all have to be looked at in itself. I think that would, in Hamadan, it would start in the year 1905 or something, if I'm not mistaken, and in Kermanshah it would be formed, I think, also in the year 1890. Actually, I'm not too sure exactly. They're just quoting over, just from the source I'm reading, that was also in 1898 in Tehran. But I think there were various different branches over there. But be it as may, he was there over there. I think we'd learn inside that place. At Cha'at, I think it was called. V'siyam lemudo Parsit b'Tzarfatit. Sham nishal lelemed kavar b'tzirato siya b'parnasat mishpachto. I think eventually he would learn and also be responsible for the Parnasat family. I think in the year 1911, he was at that stage in time just past his teenage year. I believe he was about 20. Guyes l'shuret has nad ramia mishtara hamedina ha'iranit. I think he would actually work as part of the police structure himself. Shret sham lamala misheva shanim. הוא עולה לדרגת סרבן או סולטן. דרגה מקבילה לקפטן, קצין, ומכה כינוי סולטן סולימאן. He would get this nickname of the Sultan Suleiman, if I'm not mistaken, the Captain Shlomo over there for his different roles, I think, connected to the army. Okay, now he's going to end up really doing huge undertakings for the congregation itself. I think בגיל 26, at the age of 26, הקים כהן-צדק את תנועות התרבות הראשונה של צעירי יהודית טהרן. So he will actually start forming and creating things, just to say at that point in time, the first cultural movement, let's say, of young Jews in Tehran, which became, like, say, an important educational center with regards to culture and spiritually for promotion of Jewish identity in Iran. And I think he was actually going to be appointed the president for the first 5 years, so that was a lot of responsibility with regards to that. הוא נבחר לנשיא למשך 5 שנים, be the president for 5 years, ודחף להקמת סניפים בערים רבות באיראן. מטרות התנועה כללו לימוד עברית והפצת ההלכה היהודית, איחוד יהודי איראן, קירוב ליהודים מארצות אחרות. הוא היה בין המייסדים של האגודה היהודית של טהרן, ושכיחם את פגישותיו הראשונות בביתו בשכונת אודלנגן, שכונה יהודית מסורתית בטהרן. So in regards to that, just to give a synopsis to what he said, if anyone didn't understand, he was one of the founders of Jewish Association of Tehran. He would host meetings in various neighborhoods. Let's just say he would talk many villages and various different places, we have to point out. And during these trips, he would actually, I think, document the condition of Jewish communities in Iran in itself. He would establish, as I said before, he would be a president for 5 years, push for establishment of branches in many cities of Iran. And yeah, he would do a lot of activities on that. Now we're going to speak about his activities on the Otzah HaTorah Institute in a minute. We're just going to take a short 1-minute break up here. So please just wait, and we'll be back in one minute. So in the meantime, just be patient as we're going to speak in due course. Hi, Shalom everyone. Thanks for being patient over here as we're exploring a famous philanthropist, I believe a rabbi also, within regards to the land of Iran over here on this special edition. Mr. Kohen-Sedek, or Rabbi Kohen-Sedek, or to give it his full title, Rav Shlomo Kohen Sedek over here. Now, let's talk about the Otzah HaTorah. It will be a huge institute that he will actually form at that point in time. My father would actually learn, I believe, in that Torah system. So much of his education, thanks to that, would be Mossad Otzah HaTorah. So I think it was in the year 1946. Apparently there was another rabbi, I think Rav Polni Levi, Yasad Kohen Sedek at Mossad Otzah HaTorah. They would actually form the Otzah HaTorah in of itself, and very, very interesting. Now, Matarat HaMossad הייתה לחזק את החינוך הדתי בקהילות היהודית באיראן. That would be the, let's just say, the goal in of itself would be to, let's just say, strengthen the Jewish community of Iran in of its own right. That's something that we have to point out. And yeah, at that point of forming time, מטרת המוסד הייתה לחזק את החינוך הדתי בקהילת היהודית האיראן. Rav Kohen-Sedek נבחר לנשיא הראשון של המוסד. He will be appointed the first, let's just say, president of this מוסד. ארגון תוכניות להכשרת מורים ושלח שליחים לעולים מרוחקים ללמוד עברית. הלכה ותרבות יהודית. מוסדות אלו כונו, I think it had a specific nickname, but it was called the Otzah HaTorah, respectively, inside Ivrit. So that's something that we very much have to point about. Let's just say a word within regards to Otzah HaTorah over here, just for a minute. I think it's important to actually speak about the organization that we happen to be speaking about. We actually did a special edition, I believe, in, it was possibly about 2 months or something. No, it was a bit more, maybe about 4 or 5 months ago we did. I think around time of Shavuot it was. It actually was an organization created in 1945 to provide Orthodox Jewish education, I think setting up schools in Mandate, Palestine, obviously preparation of the Jewish state. I think it will expand further in 1961 in France, especially where Sephardi communities were very much increasing at a quick rate. I think it was in someone named Isaac Shalom, who we recorded a video about before, in 1945. He was actually a Syrian-born businessman, philanthropist, if I'm not mistaken, and one of the leaders of the Syrian, Sephardic and Syrian Jewish communities in New York would be the person, together with Joseph Shaman of Jerusalem and Ezra Tubal of Buenos Aires. They worked together to, let's say, offset what they saw as spiritual decline and intellectual impoverishment, let's say, more in Mandate, Palestine and the Middle East. So they founded Otzah Torah for that in of itself, and yeah, really would do huge amounts, let's just say, in of itself, with the schools. I think they would open in Mandate, Palestine, 29 schools, and after the establishment of the State of Israel in 1947, they would cease their operations, I believe, in Israel at that point in time. And they would develop schools in Jewish communities in nations throughout Middle East and North Africa, establishing 40 schools in Iran. 8,600 students were enrolled, very interesting enough, North African and colonies and nations. I think they established schools in Tripoli and Libya before the population largely emigrated in 1950. And I think they operate still schools in Morocco, respected over, with about 500 students. I don't know how recent that was in of itself. And also, I think, if I'm not mistaken, maybe in France and other places, also in France, obviously with the rapid increase of Jewish communities, we have to point out. And I think they still have further plans continuously to also build and continue what they're doing in of itself. So that's just a synopsis with regards to Otzah HaTorah. And they very much had a presence in Tehran. It was very much thanks to Rav Kohen Sedek over there that would, let's just say, be responsible within regards to that. Now, anyone tuning in live, welcome to our community as we're exploring the famous rabbi from Iran over here, Rav Shlomo Sedek, over here on this special edition. That's something that we very much have to point out over here, friends. So, yeah, very, very important. So that's very interesting. So if you haven't subscribed yet, please subscribe to the channel and join our community and learn more over here. So that's very interesting. Yeah, so just looking at a picture of the famous rabbi over here, as just we happen to be speaking at that point in time. It's okay, so he writes various writings. במהלך חייו פרסם מספר ספרים חשובים. חלקת הפרסית יהודית, חלקי מכתביו לא ראו אור מחמת קשיים כלכליים. So some of the books would not actually come out because of different reasons, but it include the history of the Jews of Iran. That was in 2 volumes, if I'm not mistaken. And it says היבטה בסיס לעבודתה של Dr. Habib Levi. So apparently Habib Levi, who was a famous historian and was working for Poalei Tzion in Iran. He was a famous Jew and author of history books also. We have to point that out over here on this edition. Habib Levi, I think he lived between 1886 to 1984, if I'm not mistaken. And hopefully we will be able to record a video about him in due course. It will definitely should speak about some of these very, very famous personalities, definitely on more extensive edition, let's just say. So he was close to him, seemingly. And מדריך להוראה עצמית של השפה העברית. In 1915, he would be a מדריך. ספר דקדוק עברית, he would actually formulate. And פירוש חלומות דניאל. This was in 2 volumes, in the dreams of Daniel. The כהן-צדק, which was a let's say, gathering of different halachot and musa of the Jewish community. Emunah tzedek, hesperim l'she'elot al hilkot Torah. I think in the year 1941, it says, Hechel leparsem ed luach hashana ha'ivri, harishon beparsit. So I think he would actually write a Jewish calendar, also part of the language, or both Ivrit and also maybe using Persian, or he looked into it, that's for sure, at least. Koled tzadikim avriim, parsiyim, גרגוענים וערבים. לאחר מותו המשך בנו יצחק כהן-צדק, so his son יצחק כהן-צדק, להוציא את הלוח. He would actually print this specific book in of itself, which is very, very interesting. And I'm just looking at some pictures also here inside this series. חיים ואישים, כהן-צדק, הרב כהן-צדק, נשא לאישה את בת דודתו גוהר. פירוש שמה תכשיט, it's reported over. משפחות בקאג', I believe. לשניים נולדו 6 ילדים, reported over, 4 בנות ו2 בנים. יצחק ויוסף, apparently, were the 2 sons, שהמשיכו את דרכו בעשיית קהילתו ותרבותית. And I think Rav Shlomo Tzedek was passed away in 1964 on the 12th of Shvat. Very interesting enough. So it's just the Hilula has just come like a few days ago. over here, מתחלב לב. הוא הוצא אחריו ברשות רחבת היקף בתחום החינוך, ההיסטוריה וההרגעה הקהילתי של יהודי Iran. So very much famous 12th of Shvat, which is going to be was last week, was the date of Silula. We'll explore a bit more within regards to the famous rabbi and other rabbis also in the coming minutes. So yeah, just watch your space. And yeah, we covered a lot of informations about him, so that's important definitely for many people over here. So we'll be back in 1 minute, friends, over here. Hi, Shalom, everyone. We are just exploring the history with regards to Rab Kohen Sedek over here in this special edition over here. He was a famous historian and someone that we've spoken about very much a huge amounts before inside this series. Okay, so let's continue speaking more within regards to them over here. we're just going to speak a few more words within regards to him. As we just get the place at the moment. Okay, so yes, he wrote other works, as we mentioned about before. I think he got married to his wife. She was, I think, maybe a very distant relative to them. But the Gohar, Perushama Takshit, if I'm not mistaken, from Mishpachat, but Bakaj, if I'm not mistaken. They would have, as I said before, 6 children, including 4 girls and 2 boys, Yitzchak and Yosef. Interesting enough, Rav Shlomo Tzedek would pass away in 1964, as I said before, on the 12th of Shvat. That's something else that we have to point out within regards to him. So let's explore a few more highlights within regards to him about his life. I think it was in 1911, obviously after he finished his high school diploma, he went to the Geder Maya and was, let's say, the outer city policing branch of the Iranian army. He would serve more than 7 years in that capacity and would get a ranking of the Sarvan of Sultan, a captain, if I'm not mistaken, which give him the nickname Sultan Solomon. That's Captain Solomon. And I think, but he was very passionate about social and cultural affairs, as well as advancing for Jewish beliefs. He very much saw as very important. He would resign from his military service and began work at cultural institutions. At 26, he formed a 13-member council of youngsters, thus founding the first cultural movement of the young Jews of Tehran, to which he was elected a president for 5 years. Afterwards, he had huge efforts, let's say, to lead the movement to open several other branches in most of Iranians' towns with a Jewish community. Among its goals, the movement aimed to teach Hebrew and spread the Jewish religious law and knowledge to unify the Jews of Iran and to encourage them to connect with the Jews of other countries. He would marry someone named Gohar, if I'm not mistaken. That means a Jew. And his father's, very interesting enough. I think it was somehow distantly related, but I have to double check that. As they grew up, Yitzchak and Yosef Kohen-Sedek both followed their father's suit, let's just say. And like Sultan Solomon, they spent most of their lives in social and cultural, let's just say, affairs in of itself. Now, Shlomo Kohen Sedek is considered one of the founding members of the Tehran Jewish Association. He arranged for the very first meeting to be convened at his own house until a dedicated location would be found for the Nasant organization to, let's say, seat the guests. Wooden branches covered in Persian carpets were placed around the central pool of house of the courtyard in the Orjudan neighborhood and the Jewish ghetto of Tehran between the 2 world wars. So he was assigned career-related tasks that would take him to towns and cities all around the country, each town or village, while he assessed and took care of the living conditions of the Jews who study the Jewish history and the culture of the area. Very interesting enough. So that is important to say. For the 22 years from between the years 1919 and 1941, Rabbi Cohen-Sedek frequent professional trips put him through much hardship. If I'm not mistaken, he would travel 180 Iranian towns and cities, ordeal that would allow him to collect statistical, historical, cultural, and social data on Iranian Jewish communities. If I'm not mistaken, in 1924, Rav Shlomo Kohen Sedek posted a group of them. Now, this was Jews to make pilgrimage to the Holy Land. Shortly afterwards, he returned to his homeland, Iran, and began work as a head of accounting at the Danish from Camp Sachs, which they held a contract with the government of Iran to construct their national railroad. Very, very interesting. So very, let's just say, to the point article over here. Fluent in Persian, French, English, and Hebrew. I think Rav Shlomo Kohen Sedek was also outstanding, beloved scholar and a gifted speaker. One close family with the cultural and social issues that face the Iranian Jews. I think in 1946 he was recommended by the Executive Board of Tehran Jewish Association to the Halevi, a Polish rabbi who was in the Iran to help the Second World War, Polish refugees, for cooperation in cultural affairs. And with the relentless efforts of those 2 erudite figures, the cultural, let's say, institution of the Iranian Jews, namely the Otsa Hatorah Cultural Center, was established for long And the foundation opened several other branches in most Iranian towns with a Jewish community on the name Ganjei Danesh. That's another interesting thing. So we're going to speak a bit more about him in a minute. We're just going to take another short break, and then we're going to start. Okay, thanks for being patient. So we know that Rav Shlomo Kohen Sedek was elected as the first president of Otzar Torah Cultural Center. He picked qualified people, set a 2-year educational seminars, and trained experienced teachers. He would send them around the country to teach religious Jewish subjects, which were covered by the Otzar HaTorah program. It was a colossal, educational movement in the Iranian Jewish schools, largely transformed the youth education and led to a revival of religious knowledge in Iranian Jewish communities. He's also known as Sultan Suleiman, as we have to point out. He completed various books and works, some penned at the Judeo-Persian alphabet, which could not be published due to the shortage of financial resources. And very, very interesting. So that's an important topic in of itself. So much is actually written over him with regards to his biography, his bibliography. I think, as we mentioned before, his son Isaac Cohen-Sedek would continue to publish work with corresponding date, Persian, Gregorian, and Arabic calendars, as well as marking of the silent days. So that's something that we very much have to point out over here. So he was a key figure of his time, Rav Shlomo Kohen Sedek. So I recommend everyone to learn more within regards to him, and so on and so forth. And just wishing everyone important, safe day. This was very rare information about a Persian rabbi that was very much connected to India. So that's, I think, very, very important actually to hear over here. And I really, really appreciate it. Yeah. I'm just going to set it up, the payment system. Sorry about that. Yeah, we're just finding the place over here. So Rabbi Shlomo Kohen Sedek, famous personality of his time, another one that's I think it's important actually to find out. Just much apologies for the delay with regards to this. He was very, very much a famous man of his time in Iran. We definitely have to point that out, friends. But seemingly I can't get access to a photo with regards to him at the moment. I hope we will get it, so then we can put it on the actual thumbnail in of itself. So it was a famous person. Please don't forget to subscribe to the channel now. And we're going to learn much, much more. Hopefully maybe once a week. Well, let's see if we can do. And learn more about great Iranian rabbis. Also, there was many, many, many. So that's something that very much have to point out and to appreciate. Now, friends, we're doing a lot of programs here. We're trying to formulate an encyclopedia of famous rabbis of yesteryear. So please, urging everyone to work hard on this once it actually does come out. And we really appreciate it. I know that it was a few days short notice, but it's very, very interesting. So wishing you well. Take care. thanks for watching, and my friend, be well. We're very, very excited for you. Hopefully it's going to be a life of happiness and blessings. Bezrat Hashem.